Well, why don't I go ahead and get started and latecomers can join as they arrive. I want to welcome you all to our fifth and next to the last, no, sixth and next to the last Better Together session. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Margot Frank, and with me today are Jen Chandler, our Director of Operations, and Nico Brown, I never remember Nico's title, uh, Chapter Development, uh, coordinator, and our special guest today that we're so excited to have, Brandy Hamilton, who is a community organizer and freedom fighter, an agitator for good trouble. So
Yes.
yeah,
Hey,
so welcome everyone, and I want to just remind you that this is we're not here as the experts. Well, maybe Brandy is, but the rest of us are not here as the experts. Um, but we're learning together as a collective about how to be better elder climate activists and our commitment to sharing information and resources, um, of course, with the goal of bringing us all together for the betterment of our communities, and especially around climate equity and justice. So we hope that you will stick around and participate in our breakout rooms. They won't be quite as long this time as they have been the last few times because we want to give Brandy as much time as possible. But we will, in the breakout sessions, really be um, diving in a bit to helping us develop our stories that are the foundation for how we can go out in the world and organize around climate equity and justice. So welcome everyone. And I want to just talk a little bit about, maybe we can have the next slide, Jen, unity and community. Um, there's so much divisiveness these days, and we know that it's through unity that we can really come together and make change in ways that really better make things better for everyone where we live. Um, and it's very, oftentimes people on these calls have said, well, where I live, there just isn't much diversity, or certainly during the pandemic, the only people I'm seeing are the people in my building or on my block, and they're all just like me. But we know that um, having a more diverse group from a broader section of the community gives us power and gives us a voice that will speak to more people. And so it's really important that can move in that direction. Of course, um, we have power in numbers. One voice can have an impact, but many voices are really what create change. And if you're part of an organization, or for instance, ECA, or an organization, going for funding or trying to get resources or backing or support from other groups, when you've got more numbers that you represent that are part of your group, it gives you more power also. Let's go to the next slide, Jen. Thanks. So what does it mean to build community? Well, Brandy's really going to, and Nico are going to give us much more information about that. But just some basic building blocks of this are communicating, being able to talk about what is the problem, what's missing, what's needed. So communicating is basic building block. Creativity, being creative, creating the pathways that will benefit as the most people possible and really make a change. So we bring our creativity to this process also. And challenging the current status quo. That takes a lot of courage. And for those of us who are part of ECA and our elders, we've all had times in the course of our long lives when we have challenged some status quo. You can't get old without doing that in some way. And so we can draw on that experience. And then change, of course. to bring about those outcomes that are going to be a better world for all of us. So, Nico, I'm going to pass that over to you. We're going to really focus on organizing today, and Nico will lead us in that as we move towards Brandy. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Margot. Good evening to everybody. And again, welcome to you all for being here with us today. And we're really going to take a deep dive, well, a bit of a deep dive into organizing. And I brought along one of my friends, Brandy, and I'm so excited to have her with us today because, as Ms. Margot said, she is a freedom fighter, a freelance organizer with me in cooperation with Dogwood. So she is actually one that goes out with me in my capacity at Dogwood, and she does the on the ground. She's our lead organizer, and she does the on the ground organizing in Mississippi, those places that I talk about dealing with the wood pellet plants out in Mississippi. So with that, let's take a dive in. And this particular slide here says, let's organize, you versus us. And what I'm going to utilize to exemplify this so that you can get a better understanding. Number one, this picture, the big fish versus all of the little fish. In my perspective job right now, the big fish is the wood pellet industry. So the wood pellet industry is taking on all of these low income impoverished communities. And in order for it to be the bottom picture where all of the little fish are taking on the big fish, we have to organize. So we're actively organizing in the Southeast as it relates to different impoverished communities like Bun, Mississippi, Gloucester, Mississippi. There's a plant, I believe I've told you all before, I live in an impacted community here in Greenwood, South Carolina. There's one in Robeson County, North Carolina, one in Sampson County, North Carolina. There's one in Cottondale, Florida. There's one in Louisdale, Mississippi, Epps, Alabama, Adel, Georgia. Another one coming to 96, South Carolina. And then there are several proposed plants that are coming as this industry continues to move. So that you that I'm referring to is the bigger industry, and the us are the smaller communities that are coming together in order to bring about a change in their community. So we're changing the way that things are navigating, and we're changing the way that things are navigating through organizing. Ms. Jen, if you would give me the next slide. So what is community organizing? Community organizing is a method of engaging and empowering people with the purpose of increasing the influence of groups. So Brandy may talk about it, but I'm gonna talk about our past with the wood pellet industry. And so we go out to Mississippi. And what took me out to Mississippi in this work was they were fined, the highest fine to date, $2.5 million. And so I wanted to see this community for myself. So what I had the opportunity to do was go out to this community in Gloucester, Mississippi. And when I went out to this community, I didn't know anybody, but I took my story with me. And my story is the fact that I am a person who is impacted the very same way that they are in their community. And so I engaged with the community by talking to them, letting them know what was going on in their community. And in June of this year, we went out and had a community education meeting to empower the individuals in the community to let them know what was going on in their community and also provide support. And so we went out and told our story to the individuals that were there, really made that connection with them and how it's very similar to what we're doing, and also gave them a base of support to empower them to create change for themselves in their community. Ms. Jen, next slide, if you don't mind. And so why is community organizing important? It brings about a social change for disadvantaged groups. And so in this case, as I continue to tell you the story about the wood pellet industry and the Gloucester community, one thing that they didn't know was this fine had been found in this community. This facility looms over a Black mobile home community. The plant is about, the only thing that separates this plant from this community is a retainer pond. Like, no, anything else is a retainer pond and a chain link fence. So all of the things, when it's coming off of the top of the wood piles, all that dust, everything is blowing directly into this community. And so people, we had one person, and her mobile home is directly behind this facility. And when we talked to her, she talked about never having asthma and all of a sudden developing it, right? So when she said that she developed it, she said she thought that she developed it through a place where she was already working. And she said after she ended up leaving that place of employment, and after leaving that place, her asthma worsened. She didn't have the information or the education behind what the wood pellet industry does. And so she was considered to be a part of the disadvantaged group. Without that information, without those decisions, she's unable to make an informed decision about her life and how she wants to move. And so community organizing is important, to share that information, to share that story, to share those incidents, because I may be going through it over here and you may be going through it, but you don't know what this information is. And so it's about sharing that information and empowering people to create a change for themselves and their communities. And so that is the number one reason why community organizing is important, because you connect communities to the issues to bring about a social change for the people who are disadvantaged. Okay. Next slide, Ms. Jen. So steps to organizing. Ms. Jen found this by Marshall Gantz, and it's from Organizing, People, Power, Change. And 5 key practices of organizing: telling story, building relationships, structuring teams, strategizing, and acting. With telling stories, and you guys are going to do this a little later, and Ms. Margot is going to talk more about it. What connects you to the issue that is going on? Why are you here? So when I go out and speak to the individuals and how we went from 0 people in this community to having over 80 people and packing out a library around the community education meeting, is telling the story. Telling the story about the wood pellet industry. And for me, I'm personally impacted. So I went to this community, letting them know, hey, this is going on in this community. I live in the community. These things have happened. These are strategically placed in low income, impoverished neighborhoods. And this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is why I'm here to help you, because you don't have to live like this. You can make a change for yourself. And so telling my story connected the individuals who were impacted to my story of impact in my community. And from there, what we did was build a relationship. So when we began to build that relationship, it was about trusting me and understanding the things that I am going through or have been through are the very same things that they are presently going through in their community, and they didn't even know that was going on. And so we built relationships. I talk to individuals all the time. They ask how I can support them and how I can help them, and they call with questions. And we support them ongoing via phone. And every about 90 days, I actually go out and to support them. And sometimes I go out a little more than that. Like, they trust me so much now to where the last time Brandy and I went was in September. But since Brandy and I've been back out again in October, because they created a pop-up shop, a business, and several of them wanted me to come out just to support the community and talk with other people, because they had so many more people in the community. And so they wanted me to bring more information and talk with them. And because they trust me doing that, and because we built that relationship, I was able to go out, at the drop of a hat pretty much, and talk with them and talk to more people in the community and build more capacity and begin more relationships in the Gloucester community. And I even went out this past weekend. I was out in Mississippi because one of our partners out there established a relationship with the church, and the church invited us to come. And I thought that I was going to support her, but I ended up speaking at the church. And those individuals, because they trusted the information that I had, and because they trusted the relationship that they had seen, and some of the people who had previously been at some of the meetings, because they trusted us so much, by the time I finished my conversation with the church, we had 8 other Black churches in the community. So 8 more connections were made through that conversation and through that trust factor. And so now we're in a place where we're able to make an even bigger impact and able to inform even more people because of that storytelling, because of that relationship building. And so now from there, we're able to build out our teams. And for me, I've been building out a team. It started with me, as I told you guys, because I was curious about this neighborhood. I went by myself, and it says structuring teams. And so for me, when I went back out, it was me by myself, me and my cell phone. I went, took pictures, brought it back to people who were already working on this issue. And I was like, hey, we need to do something about this. You guys are here. I'm all the way over here, about 10 hours away. Could you guys help me? So my team ended up being partners from other organizations who are also able to do the work in the community. And those are the people who I've already established relationships with. And as a treat to you guys, you'll actually be able to meet one of my other partners, Miss Kathy Eglin. She'll be in the next one. So I really hope that each and every last one of you will be here with us in December. That's just a little plug to let you guys know. She will be with us, and I really hope that you all can come back. But in talking about the team, she's a part of the team. So she goes out with me. Reverend Malcolm goes out with me. Brandy goes out with me. She's part of my team, and she is an absolutely amazing organizer. She does this work. Her heart is in it. And we have several other partners who go out, and those are the people who are part of my team, who can show up, who can be there when I'm not able to be there. And through them, we create strategies. So what we do is the last time we went out, prior to everybody getting on, we had a little issue when we went out in June around the mayor that was there. The mayor said that we didn't invite him to the community education meeting. He took to Facebook to say if anybody in the community opposed the plant, that they would, that their water bills, I believe, would triple in that community. And this particular community, as I told you guys, this community is a community where the median income is about $17,000. So that would be a really big issue if they did something. So when we went back out in September with the expectation of the turnout that we had in June, we had less than 10 people to participate in what we were doing because of what the mayor said. And so although we built those relationships and built that trust, this mayor has been in office and they just had re-elected him. So it was kind of hard to get to the community. And what we had to do was go back to the drawing board. And so what we did was took the community leaders that we were working with, we created a survey, and we hit the ground running. And when I mean hit the ground running, literally door-to-door canvassing, talking to individuals, trying to get people to talk to us. And so we had to recreate a strategy because we had been knocked back 2 steps. And so with strategizing, we had to go back to the board and what did we do well, what we didn't do well, and what we could have done better. And so what we did was talk to individuals in the community. We put our heads together over dinner. It's an ongoing thing. And that's to tell you guys, like, one strategy will not always work. You need a plan for that plan, another plan on top of that plan, another plan on top of that plan. In the midst of COVID, prior to COVID, canvassing was door-to-door knocking. This last election cycle in 2020, I believe, presidential cycle in South Carolina, we went from door knocking to calling people on the phone, which doesn't have that big of an impact as it is when you're doing door-to-door knocking. And so we had to re-strategize what we were doing, and we had to act on it. And the biggest thing about community organizing is showing action. If you don't do anything, you can't bring about a change. That's just it. If you don't put forth your best foot, you can't do anything. So there always has to be constant, consistent, ongoing action in everything that you do. When you get to a place where you don't feel like you can do your best, when you Miss Polly, put your best foot forward, right? Even when you put your best foot forward, sometimes you'll get knocked back. And when you get knocked back, you just have to figure out another way, re-strategize that situation, and put forth the action on it. You have to, because it's about bringing a change, not only for yourself, for your community, and community organizing is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's about all of us. And so you have to be able to tell your story to individuals. You have to be able to build those relationships. You have to be able to build out a team. And your team has to be in this situation just like you're in this situation. And they have to be there and understand that this is what we're doing. It's a togetherness to create a whole for the people. And you have to strategize the situation, because one strategy isn't going to work. You have to keep going, keep moving, keep having, keep doing. And the last thing, always, 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 always be about action. Miss Jen, if you don't mind, the next slide. And I'll pass it to Brandy.
Hey, y'all. I just was wondering what Nico was going to leave for me to say. She done took my whole speech. Okay. So I'm borrowing. I like this that y'all borrowed from, I don't know the professor's name, but I'm borrowing, or I'll be borrowing some information from a toolkit called Community Organizing 101. I didn't create the document, and sorry I can't share it with you, but basically what Nico said is organizing is knowing that the people have the power resides with the people, and putting that into action. So here, I'll just read off this for a second. Community organizing. So some of this may seem redundant, but bear with me. It's one of the main tools used by social movements to make change. And we build power with the people who don't have it because it was somehow systematically denied to them. So in Gloucester specifically, but which will be common for whatever cause or area, town you're working with or in. These folks are, like Nico told you, are impoverished. A lot of them are uneducated, or, they have minimal education. But I guess the most important piece to remember is, like, when folks are poor, they are trying to survive. So many of them won't take it upon themselves to read up on other extracurricular stuff, even though it's important, even though it affects their lives and their health. And so in organizing, we bring the issue to their front door, literally. So I didn't read this. Why organize? Is this me? Okay, sorry. So why organize? Because it brings about change. And it brings liberation. So there's power in numbers. Yes, we're better together. The best way to reach people is on the ground, organizing, canvassing. Yes. So when we bring the issue to their front door, like I was saying, like literally knocking on the door. And when we bring our stories, we need to remember why we're doing the work. And so, like, hold that passion in your heart, because days get long, the weather is cold or hot, whatever. And when you hold the light within you and your truth, you let that radiate, like whatever your reason for doing environmental justice, the panda bear, whatever, the polar bears, the ice is melting, whatever, or just people, humans, who are having trouble breathing because of a power plant that's making billions and billions a minute. Bring that with you. And that always, I found that energy, folks can feel it, whether they're educated on environmental stuff or not, they can feel it and know that you care. So, I don't know if I have a next slide, but in Gloucester, yes, who, what, when, where, why, who do we want to reach? The folks who you want to get your message to, and what do you want to communicate to them? So in Gloucester specifically, we focused on the folks who are more immediately affected. So in that mobile home, that trailer park, mobile home community that Nico spoke about earlier, that's a place a lot of folks were sick, or we just know they're just right across from the plant. They're closest in proximity to the plant, but folks there are sick. And then in the close radius, I don't know that area, I believe that someone said it's a 20-mile radius. Or Nico, do you remember that they like estimated how far
The 70-mile radius.
70?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So there was some scientific something, and they could tell that the pollutants from the Drax plant, it can spread that far. So we want to get the folks who are affected by whatever the issue is, and communicate to them like the harms, like what is happening. We told them about the fine. We told them about possible ailments they could be experiencing and not even know about it. And what do we want to communicate? Oh yeah, that basically the air is harmful because of the plant. And also that they can do something about it. So oftentimes, folks just talk about the problem and don't have a solution. So we can help community members arrive at a solution, but we want to remember that, or be mindful always that unless you're in the community, like Nico talked about, there being a similar plant in her neighborhood in South Carolina. Unless you're working in your neighborhood, you want to remember that the issue is, we're fighting the issue for the people, but the solution should be people-centric. So like, they should be the ones to arrive at whatever solution they think is best for them. So we want to communicate that we support them and that we'll help provide resources, but also to help them decide what they want done for themselves and their community. When do we need folks to canvas? So whatever your issue is that you're trying to bring attention to and solve, you want to have some literature. I call it lit, but like one sheet of paper is good. Polly, I'm trying to keep up, but I probably shouldn't try to do that. I see your messages here at the bottom in the chat. Get some lit to explain what is going on with some stats. But you want to make sure that is like very basic, starting at 0, like whatever it is, very basic, no big sciencey terminology and none of that. Just make sure that anyone can read it and understand. And you want to have something that you can hand to the folk to read over later, because they're not going to remember everything you say at the door to them. Or even if you're phone banking on the phone, they're not going to remember. So if that isn't face-to-face, which canvassing is, something you can email is cool, but have something in your hand that you can hand to them, and some way they can contact you if they need to afterwards, an email address or Facebook page. And you should have a partner if you're going door to door. So some places you may go may say, for instance, in Gloucester, not everyone in the town, of course, is pro-environment because they're pro-Drax. So folks, execs, or folks who have leadership positions within the company, you know, anybody who feels threatened, which there will always be people who stand in opposition to what you're trying to do, they'll be around too. It's not just the folks who will be like, you know, ready to hear your message and fight the power. So be mindful of that at all times, and go with the canvassing buddy if you can. So let's see, we said where you should go. Yeah, we did those. Okay, here we go. So how to canvas. So you need to make sure you have your clipboard literature sign up sheet if you want to invite them to be a part of a newsletter or some way to stay connected. Have a buddy. Yeah, safety first. When you approach folks, I was like way ahead of myself. So when you approach them, you can ask like, can you, biomass generates pollution too? Yeah. Can we have a few minutes of your time? And this smile and use friendly language. When you approach them, as long as you're carrying the light with you, everybody ain't gonna be affected by the light, but most people will. And they'll pause, you know, they'll see you're genuine. They can see you smiling through your mask. They can see you have smiley eyes. So yeah, most people will, well, it depends where you are, whatever, but usually people will be pretty receptive just to pause and at least get the give you a chance to get the literature you have in their hands. And remember to use language that is, well, it says friendly, but also, you know, just regular common language that everyone can understand. And then that's when you can tell your story. I found that when we were in Gloucester, I would say like, hey, my name's Brandy. I'm here from North Carolina. And I just wanted to talk to y'all about the plant, you know, the wood pellet plant. And they say North Carolina, because they would be moved that folks would come so far to talk to them about what's going on in their neck of the woods. So I told them my story, just, you know, how I love Black folk. I love people, but, you know, I love my people. And there in Gloucester, just like South Carolina and all the places that Nico named, it's very, these companies are very intentional about where they place these. Like, it's very deliberate. It's almost always in a poor Black neighborhood. And so my passion for my people comes through, of course. And so maybe it'll be your passion for the forest or your passion for people, you know, whatever your reason for fighting the fight, share it with them. And be sure that whatever way you feel like you may be able to connect with them, use that avenue. But also, like, you know, it's not like you're putting on a performance, but, you know, this is your audience, this one person or this couple or this whoever, right? Mama and child. And you may be the only person who they're gonna hear talk about the harms. Like maybe in this town, their mayor hasn't talked about it. It ain't on the news. Now it is, but then it wasn't. So you have to be mindful, like, to whatever you need to say. And of course you can practice it and rehearse it with your canvassing buddy. But whatever script you use, just make sure it doesn't sound scripted and just speak from the heart. Like, let them know this plant makes a gazillion dollars a minute and they don't care about y'all. Like, we're here to let you know this air that you're breathing is harmful, and people are having to get allergy shots. Baby children 5 years old are having to get allergy shots once a week all of a sudden. Oh girl, sis over here is having problems with asthma. She thought it was from her job. It's probably from the plant. She lives right across from the plant. Like, we just want y'all to know there's like dangerous things coming from this plant, and there's something we can do about it. Y'all don't have to live like this. Y'all don't have to breathe air like this, you know? And let them know that you're on their side and there to fight for them. And also to remind them of their own power too, because we don't want to pretend we're saviors of any person, place, or thing, but just teammates, you know, in the struggle. Next slide, I guess. All right, well, so
I'm going to jump in, Brandy, if that's okay.
Okay, Miss Margot.
Okay, well, you gave us a great intro for going into the breakout rooms. And as Brandy was saying, the community organizing and canvassing starts with having a story about why this is important to you. Now, we don't have enough time for you to write that whole story out of what you would say in a couple of minutes, but you are going to have enough time to begin to um, think about and explore and share some ideas of what, speaking from your heart, what's important to you. I remember when ECA was in DC meeting with Congress people a few years ago. Well, maybe it was more than a few years ago. Anyway, um, we wanted to be able to speak from our hearts about why we care about climate change, about the climate crisis. So I want to suggest that when you get into your breakout rooms, that you grab some paper and pencil, each of you, if you've got something to write with, and you just jot down a few words to begin with that will kind of capture the heart of what's important to you. Like if I were doing it, I might say, my grandkids, my effect on mental health. I'm a therapist, those kinds of things. So, and caring about my community. So just jot down some words or phrases, and then, so take a couple of minutes, if everybody takes a few minutes to do that, and then share that with your group, those ideas. You won't have your whole speech. It's kind of, the goal would be eventually to develop your elevator speech, something that you could say pretty quickly to someone that their eyes won't glaze over with, that you're not bringing out charts and fact sheets and citing statistics, but really just speaking about why this matters to you and why you're talking to them about it. And we also, for our own sake, would love to know some reasons about why you're showing up for these meetings. And, if you're showing up for these Better Together sessions, it seems to us that you must really care about climate equity and justice. And so being able to speak to that in your story is really important also, why that matters to you. So just looking at the time, and Jen and Nico, what do you think if we give people 15 minutes? 15 minutes in the breakout rooms, and there'll be small breakout rooms. So go to it, enjoy touching into your heart stories, and you may be inspired and by what other people in your group say that'll help you think about things in a different way also. And Jen's setting up the breakout rooms. When those come up, just accept it and you'll pop up in your breakout room and enjoy your conversations. Welcome back, everyone. We don't have a lot of time for feedback from your breakout rooms, but if there's something you want to share that about the story, what you realize is important in the story you're going to tell, if you want to just put up your hand and then I'll call on one or two people. Okay, Polly, you want to just briefly share a little bit? Oh, you're muted.
I was delighted to hear one of my breakout friends said that she connects to libraries. And before COVID happened, my nonprofit was working to rally for a Be the Example contest that was all about getting people in the community involved with how are they doing more energy efficiency in their homes, what are they doing travel wise, food wise. And I personally feel like this is going to be a tool for community members to take personal action to lower carbon emissions.
So part of your story will be focusing on simple things that maybe you've done, and that wondering and asking what kinds of simple things other people have done as a starting point.
And I don't really consider these simple. I think these are like huge.
Right.
Because however each of us live factors into what brings down carbon emissions.
Right. But using that as a starting point for your story of connecting with some.
And
Right.
and President Biden can do all he can do at his level, but it comes up to we, the citizen, we, the people, need to take personal action to say, no, I don't want to have a carbon-based car. I'm getting off my carbon-based diet. I am getting off my.
Polly, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to need to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's my
Okay,
input.
but thank you. Yeah. And one more minute, if somebody else has a little something you want to share about coming up with a story for yourself. If there's any other,
Thank you, Polly.
yes, thank you, Polly.
Ms. Laurel.
Laurel had something.
Laurel.
The word I came up with was equity, asking the leaders, would you want a plant like that in your neighborhood? And why are we putting them in their neighborhoods? You know, so that's one thing. And for the last 5 years, I've seen fires in Washington, Oregon, Colorado, etc. Now we're seeing fires in the desert here where I live in Arizona. And when cacti burn, they take a long time to come back. So we were hiking out and saw the evidence of fire. And it's sad.
So you can talk about how much it affects you to see the beautiful cactus in the desert burning and how they'll be lost for a long time.
Well, and Jerry had a story about going in a glass bottom boat and seeing the coral reefs all dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laurel. Well, thank you all for showing up today. And, you know, this was recorded. And so for anyone you know who wasn't able to be part of it, but would be interested in learning more about community organizing, please, when you get the link to the recording, you can share it with them and spread the word that way. We hope to see you for our last and final Better Together session on December 9th, a month from today. We're really excited that through Nico's great connections and associations with NAACP, we're going to have Kathy Egland, who is on the National Board of Directors for the NAACP US and is chair of the that board's Environmental and Climate Justice Committee. And so she knows a lot and has really been working on the front lines around climate equity and justice. So please join us then, encourage others to join us, and have a good and safe rest of this month. And this Thanksgiving, we can all be grateful for all of you who show up and are committed to climate action.
Yes.
So thank you all.
Love it, love it, love it.
Thanks, y'all.